Okay. Welcome to the first CosmWasm community call. This is the first one, March 10th, 2020. So thank you all for coming and look forward to presenting a bit about CosmWasm. The agenda of this call right now is first a short vision of CosmWasm, like what we intend to do in general, which are long-term vision goals. Some quick updates on recent progress we've been having. A list of external testnets, because you actually have a few chains starting to use our stuff in production already, or testnets at least. Tentative Roadmap. These are actually, that's I think the best place for feedback here. We'll sketch out what we thought to do, some of the next big chunks of work we plan to do. The ordering isn't fixed, and this is, I think, a good place to get feedback from the community if there are people that are building on CosmWasm and really need some feature earlier or later, earlier mainly. So yeah, if there is some strong external needs, that's definitely adjustable. Upcoming events and an open Q&A. So if you have an urgent question, if you understand the words I'm saying, please interrupt me or say, speak slower, Ethan. Otherwise, just the questions at the end. We can have all the questions at the end. Okay, so the CosmWasm Vision is to create secure, interoperable, multi-chain smart contracts with superior dev or UX in general, running any Cosmos SDK chain, and maybe beyond. For me, the security is key. We want to build smart contracts that are secure by design. So a lot of the work has been into that, the architecture, to avoid a lot of the possible attacks on Ethereum. And using Rust, which is a very nice, strong type language with very strong guarantees of correctness. We also can support other languages in the future, but want to go beyond things that are, yeah, we focus on writing secure contracts and then add easy use rather than start with ease of use. Interoperable is not just multi-chain. Interoperable is it should work the rest of the blockchain. This allows, for example, one of our visions is that the contract can call into any of the native code and native call into the contracts. So, you know, you could have a multi-sig that calls into a staking contract to allow you to use a CosmWasm multi-sig to control your staking tokens or to validator on-chain. To allow key rotation, other features. So it really should work seamlessly with all the native contracts on any chain. So the same contract should run basically just as well on the Regen testnet or the Enigma testnet or on some future testnet from another thing on various versions of SDK. And the same contract should, once we stabilize 1.0 version of CosmWasm, should be able to run any CosmWasm support chain. We might have a few feature flags they might need. So, okay, this needs the IBC chain to run on, but in general, they should be agnostic. The contract should be pretty agnostic to the chain, which allows maximum code reuse between different chains and environments. So multi-chain means the same code runs on multiple chains, and it also means that the contract can go from one chain to another, so IBC. So you can have a contract on one chain call a contract on another chain. This avoids all sort of vendor lock-in. So you can pick the best chain for your code. And if you realize you want to move to another chain, you can deploy those same contracts without changing the code to another chain. And then use IBC to bridge them to kind of move your tokens or to migrate from version 1 to version 2 onto your own chain, which allows people to start in hosted zones and then eventually say self-sovereign. If I want to run my own CosmWasm zone, just my app is so big, like Aragon is doing now with Ethereum, it should be easy to do that. It should be seamless. So make a lot of these things seamless and easy to do is one of the goals. Beyond this, we want to focus on superior UX and dev UX. So it should be a good experience to develop on this, good documentation, clean APIs, stable things to work on. We're still breaking changes. We're trying to avoid major breaking changes. There should be, more detailed ones now on the public API. There definitely will be, but we want to head towards, the next 6 months, definitely a stable 1.0 API that will be at least API compatible for foreseeable future. And the UX, there's been a lot of work recently on working in web app UX. So we have a nice web apps built on top of CosmWasm to provide a nice experience for the users. So they don't just have the CLI tools, but really web app tools, which is, I think it looks nicer if you've seen any of the Code Explorer stuff. This should run any Cosmos SDK chain, and we want to, once we get a stable version out there, we want to have multiple versions, and like so 39 or 40 SDK, whatever that stabilizes, we'd have Cosmos will run on that 40 chain, and then 41 and 42 and 43 and 10 and 12 from then on. And theoretically, it could embed in other chains, other Tendermint-based chains, or other chains in theory. So that's still a theoretical point, but the design is relatively minimal on the runtime. So it shouldn't be in theory that hard to port it to some other Tendermint-based chain. So yeah, the recent updates, the big news we have. So if you followed our channel, you've probably seen this all, or followed Medium. We have posted on all. But we released a WASM 070, which is a bunch of internal changes, and that's really nice, stable thing to build on internally. We will be adding features on top of it, but I think we fixed up most of the internal cleanups we came across of. That was really from heavy usage of contracts, especially running JavaScript full stack from React app to JavaScript SDK to the WASMD blockchain down to the smart contract and back. And this clarified a lot of the issues you had there about encoding, about naming, about various details. And it gives a really, and the REST API in there, really overhauled the REST API. So it provides a stable base to build on that you can actually build full stack on. So that's really something there. We plan to add features on top of it. You'll see that, but I think the fundamentals are more or less solid, besides changes in the Cosmos SDK. We launched the first CosmWasm testnet. So we have an endpoint, and it's a public testnet. You can feel free to upload contracts or interact with the contracts there. We'll see some demos on that, and you've probably seen some on the channel. The Code Explorer, allowing you to explore what's going on the chain, and the name app, which I'll publish today, hopefully later today, which is a simple React app to allow you to use a name service based on that. All of them using this demo net as a backend. You're more than welcome to upload your own contracts to the backend. It's a solid 0.7 backend. Don't put anything that needs security on it, like don't put money on it. But you know, it's for demoing and playing around with. It is full featured and supports everything you need. So yeah, please use it, upload contracts, upload codes. There's a faucet tied to it, so you get free tokens to pay the fees. And then you can go ahead and just upload code to it and play around with your own code on it. I'm happy to see more custom code. We've also built out a solid front-end SDK, CosmWasm JS, which allows you to interact with the blockchain in a nice way. And I think there's a recent article showing how to use the node REPL, the node console to interact with it. So it shows you that. And we use the SDK to build out some demo apps in the Code Explorer, showing basically a full stack solution that you write some contract code, upload the contract code, and then you can start writing right away your front end code. No other Go bindings needed. Right away you have a simple, you start your React app right after that. There's nothing else needed. Those are the big updates you have. So definitely, open for questions. We'll be posting more on that. I think we've really shown that we have a full stack solution, and now working to refine this solution in the coming weeks. The big news, which has not happened yet, which I announced here, is we're going to move all our repos to one org. So some stuff has been in CosmWasm, like WasmD and Docs, and other stuff is in Confio. Confio is my company. It's like I subcontract out with that, but it's basically a small company, which has been doing some consulting work and grant work for the ICF. So all of the CosmWasm work was done under ICF grants. Well, most of it was, and recently it's self-funded. But realized that Confio is no real brand and CosmWasm is, so we're going to move all of our repos that relate to CosmWasm under the CosmWasm GitHub organization to make it easier to find one solid place for them. So GitHub should allow that transparency. So if you've checked out the code, the import should work fine. But we might have, yeah, there may be some changes. If you're doing forks, you might want to change upstream so you can push to the fork and stuff like that. But it should be pretty transparent. We have some external testnets going on, which is also a nice validation that people are actually using it. So there's been a lot of interest, a lot of people talking about using it. So if your testnet is going to use it, or if you are using this in semi-production, I'm very happy to add you to the list, and please get in touch. So right now, Enigma has them on our testnet. It's internal 0.1.0 testnet that has CosmWasm smart contracts. So they're running that. I think it's basically in-house validators, more or less. But it's up and running, and they've been uploading contracts on it. We also have the Regen is launching the next public testnet. They've had a series of incentivized testnets, which have been pretty impressive. They have 40 or 50 validators on them, and they've been doing lots of upgrades. They've really pushed the limits of the upgrade module in the Cosmos SDK. I mean, I helped develop that with them. That they developed this upgrade module, and it's 2-minute downtime, 1 minute, 2-minute downtime for upgrading a full live net from one version of the code to another version of the code with migrations, which is state of the art basically, except on the non-forked SDK to state of the art. So I think it's pretty cool, and if you're interested in learning that, I recommend you join that testnet and learn how to use upgrades. It's good practice if you want to use upgrades in your own code, in your own network as well. And so they'll be hosting that one, which is actually a relatively stable basis, and that gets somewhere near Ropstein, I think, stability, or Rinkaby. So that's actually a probably proper public testnet, and that will be, they're collecting Genesis TX, I think, till Thursday, and Friday they're launching it. And next week they should be having a bunch of games or challenges to actually use smart contracts on the chain. So check it out if you want to. And the last one, Cyber Congress, they were the first ones that I know of that integrated the WASM D module into their own application. They're their own custom SDK application they worked on for a while, and they integrated XWASM into it, I think some months ago, beginning January, pretty quickly. And they're planning to use that binary for the next testnet, the Euler 6 testnet. So they've been working this for a while, but they haven't made it released yet because they're doing a lot of other in-house stuff. So yeah, there's 3 testnets there. If you have another testnet, a public testnet that you'd like to add to this list, let me know. I will be adding to the CosmWasm website with permission of the different groups and projects working on them. So yeah, now the part you're probably interested in most, the roadmap, not what we have done, but where we're going. So the first big thing is we promised a while ago to focus on some big features like cross-contract queries and this iterator. So the database, not just key value get, but to iterate over multiple keys. So you get ranges of keys, much like the SDK KV store. Both of which were a little tricky to implement, so we pushed them out, and not necessary for the basic functionality. Those 2 and a few other features will make it in the 0.8 milestone, which you can check on. You can check on CosmWasm 0.8 milestone on the GitHub. What we're currently planning to do that one, and that will really be. We basically had a solid, relatively solid by 0.6. We had a solid 5 was kind of solid, but the CosmWasm is more solid feature-wise, and we just refined it and worked on the WASM-D blockchain, and then worked on the front end to make sure we have a full stack solution that works end to end. So we're not just optimizing one piece. So now that we have this full stack solution, it's time to get back to really optimizing the contract. So we're going to that. That's one of our next milestones to work on. And with that, we want to add some more sample contracts. So a lot of people say, how do you call it native code? You can't do that, can you? And I said, yes, I can. There's a demo code that does this, except it's not well documented. For example, the mask. And it allows you to call arbitrary Cosmos SDK messages. So you could use it for staking messages. That's not well documented, I would say. So we're going to try to write some more of these contracts and document them better to show different use cases. Not just to say we have contract, this amazing contract, use it as is, which we can, but also this contract shows you how to do a contract to contract call This contract shows you contract SDK integration. This contract shows you how to do queries. This contract shows you how to use iterators and use CW storage, extractions. So different features. They wish to show that we actually, with 0.8, we should basically be able to do anything you can do in Ethereum, except Ethereum Magic maybe. But like basically anything you'd normally do in Ethereum contract should definitely be doable with 0.8. So yeah, definitely any wishes you have, we're definitely open for wishes. If people say this is some feature we wish we could build, we're happy to build out simple contracts demoing that kind of functionality. The next thing is IBC integration. We're currently talking to ICF about working on this one, and talking to Christopher Goes on that, and working with them, collaborating to get full CosmWasm integration with IBC, which is cool. So we want to provide a minimal interface that contracts a few endpoints to them to allow them to send and receive messages and handle their, and then pipe that up through WasmD, where probably actually the majority of the logic would probably be in the blockchain to talk the full scope of all the possibilities. The ICS scope is really, it allows a lot of possibilities. It's really flexible. It allows lots of ways of using it. So we're basically going to say, well, we don't want to allow all of this. We want to allow just one connection per contract, no passing ports around, or one, yeah, we don't want to have multiple ports per contract. We don't want to have multiple connections and stuff. So we do a very simple version. We assume a lot, make a lot of assumptions there, and then use that to provide a very simple interface internally to the contracts. So we've been working on designing that. This is going to be pretty major work because SDK has changed quite a bit since the year 38. They've integrated protobuf entirely. The IBC stuff is a lot of new stuff. So we have to have a major breaking changes to WasmD to get cutting edge SDK master again, and then try to integrate that with there. So it's that's the next one. We want to do that one. It might start in parallel to the 0.8, but that will definitely release later because it will not be released until there's actually a tagged release with IBC on it. So there's no sense to have to tag to branches and non-releases upstream dependencies because you just ask for trouble. So we'll basically be releasing that. We'll start work on that hopefully later this month, hopefully. And it will be released hopefully in parallel with IBC release when there's a tagged Cosmos SDK with IBC. And yeah, I'd be happy using Game of Zones and stuff like that. So that's interesting. Two other cases we're working on in the past, assembly script and TinyGo support. So we've, Simon's done a wonderful job demoing the assembly script works. That he's gotten a sample contract more or less calling FFI into and out of the contract. It doesn't have all the features. It doesn't have the full data storage capacity. So, but he's got that worked and then paused that to work on much more of the front end stuff and really help our full stack. So we have that, and I did a minimal attempt on TinyGo, found some of the bugs, issues with the support there. It doesn't have reflection, but does compile, go to WASM, and some workarounds. And so those are ideas. Those allow us basically, instead of writing Rust contracts, write contracts either in assembly script or in Go. They would compile down to the same WASM and run the exact same chain. So the chain would be the same chain, but you have multiple languages, multiple well-supported node languages that would compile down into your contract. Like you have a case of like Solidity or Viper, I think. So anyway, but yeah, these are all basically taking existing well-known languages and compiling them down to WASM with full CosmWasm support. So the bindings, we have to make sure the bindings are there. So if people are really interested in having those might move up forward. But right now, they're kind of to-dos to make sure we can do that. We want to have that long-term. And working on more advanced front-end dev UX. So we have showed this stuff. We've shown pure React apps querying the blockchain, and we have got a lot of information out of the blockchain. I have an app where you sign the keys using a burner wallet, which stores the key in local storage, wonderfully enough. But you know, it's fine for a burner wallet on a demo testnet with no security. So the more dev UX, we want to basically say better key management solutions and better APIs if are needed. So add more helper functions, which is easy, but then have proper things like a Chrome extension for key management or ledger integration, or more interesting stuff like MFA, 2FA, kind of Wallet Connect style or 2FA stuff, and more an idea of transparent key management and much more stuff, especially on key management, making that both secure and easy to use for the client side. So that's on our to-do list. It's kind of low priority because that's only really important when you start getting towards production. So until there are people really going towards production with CosmWasm that really want to build out production style dev apps, we'll promote that more and start working piece by piece on it. But for now, we have enough to show people to build demo apps. Nice, easy to use demo apps are working, and that's where we're at. We have definitely clear plans. There was a demo that Simon made about integrating existing Chrome extension to use to sign for CosmWasm, which is quite secure. It will allow you to connect to Testnet and send both native and ERC20 or whatever CosmWasm style ERC20 tokens, but contract tokens through a web interface and have a Chrome extension verify it and sign it. So that has been demonstrated by Simon. So that's really cool stuff. So we can do it. It's definitely doable, but we haven't put much work into it because that's the other thing to maintain. And until there's actually a need for doing that in production level, we're not going to focus too much on it. But again, if any project is going towards production, please talk to us. And if you have any public testnets, also please talk to us. We're happy to list them on your page. So yeah, the upcoming events we have another community call in 2 weeks from today, Tuesday, March 24th, probably the same time. I will accept feedback. This may switch to be EU evening and accessible to US people. So I'm gonna get feedback on the channel, but it'll definitely in 2 weeks from now, possibly the same time. There should be a question mark there. So basically we might do alternating. From some feedback, I'm alternating mornings, evenings, EU, which will allow 1 week, one meeting would be accessible to Asia, the other meeting accessible to the US. Since we're working in Europe, we stay there always. The region testnet launched on Friday. So that's a kind of cool experience to run a validator with CosmWasm in a large testnet and try it in a semi-production mode. It's the closest production I think we're gonna see it run in. So yeah, if you wanna join in that experience and get some chops running it in a semi-production mode, and running through a bunch of stuff, they'll run you through a bunch of tasks and tradings to do it, some heavy lifting on it, which is kind of cool for anyone that actually wants to run it in production later on to join that testnet. And last, trainings. I think there was an idea to have a training later on this month in Berlin. I did one briefly a few weeks ago for the Cosmos team internally in Berlin, which was recorded. I need to get the recordings online somewhere. So that I should share that with you guys. But we were thinking of having one in person, but probably canceled due to coronavirus and that spreading everywhere. So, minimal travel, avoid unnecessary travel. So we're open for online trainings too. So if people are really interested in this, let's please get in touch again in the Q&A at least. I think if there's a lot of interest, I'd like to do some sort of trainings online, Q&A, some sort of stories. So I need it to be driven by community need. So I don't want to start random trainings for me. But if people really need something or want something or want to dig into something, I'm happy to do workshops, probably online in a Zoom format for now. And yeah, that's it. So thank you for listening. And now I open up to questions and answers.
Hey, Ethan, this is Michelle.
Hello.
I just have a quick question on you mentioned the assembly script and possibly tiny code support. Will that be part of the 8 release or is that separate?
That's separate. It's definitely not part of the 8 release. Okay. So it's just Rust.
Okay.
That can be done in parallel because they're different backend. They're just compatible. And we could even give assembly script with 0.7 version compatible, but I didn't see a strong need for it. And unless there's a strong demand for it. We're just focusing on just Rust tooling first and then add the other ones.
Yeah, I think the basic point for having assembly script support is to really prove that it is possible to compile any language into WebAssembly and upload that WebAssembly to the blockchain. And the blockchain does not need to care about where this WebAssembly comes from. It's really, the prioritization is a matter of demand. It could be built by the end of this month. It might not be ready before Christmas if nobody cares.
Hi, this is Corey from Regen. Just a quick question. One thing that we've been talking about within the Regen group is potentially if we're having the WASM running or any kind of CosmWasm running on our net, some sort of ability, as it's a domain-specific chain, to not actually have it be a fully permissioned, or sorry, fully permissionless kind of smart contracting platform. Is that stuff that you're all thinking about, like in some capacities or ways of integrating that, either through governance on the validator layer or otherwise, or do you see that as kind of like not at all in the interest of the project as you're working on it, but forks you're happy to see? Or yeah, just kind of your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think it's a very good question, first of all. It's good to have multiple possible implementations. So right now, basically, we don't allow that. We just allow anyone to upload anything. But even in the documents, it was kind of, let's allow various things. So you can either charge a fee. One way of gating it was charging a fee for uploading code, like WASMD. But the other gate was think to make the WASMD, there's messages, which is upload code, instantiate contract, and execute contract. To make the upload code one, basically gateway governance. So you could fork that. I don't know how to make that into one module. I'd like to, if it's done, I'd like to put it all into WASMD and then allow them basically to be able to switch it when you build your app. I'm not sure how to organize this without a fork, but I'm definitely down to upstream everything. And so the other option I thought is that basically you have a free anyone to upload code. You can pay a fee for uploading code, or you can have a governance vote to upload code. And then say the governance approves this code to be viable code, or not, domain-specific code. And then anyone can instantiate contract using that code, right? So once we say this code is vetted to be actually not a betting game, but really a ecological state contract, anyone can make their own version of it. So that was kind of my thought on how to do this.
Okay, and then in that time where it was still being governance on, would it be living on the chain, or it would just circulate through like some kind of mempool between all the validators, or?
You'd make a proposal. So like the way governance works is kind of, you make a proposal, say, I want to upload this code, and you write to the blockchain, and then people say yes or no.
Got it.
So that was my idea. It's I'm definitely, if you guys are going to work on that, I'm definitely happy to dig in deeper with you guys, and we're going to help you with the fork, consult on that, and then merge upstream and figure out how to merge it in, so we can allow people to control A or B, right? Which one you want.
I mean, this is all pretty long-term stuff for us. Like but certainly we'll be chatting a lot as we start evaluating it more seriously.
So I want CosmWasm to be used in many use cases. So the typical one we made now for ease of use was permissionless global network. Anyone do what they want.
Totally.
So charging a fee for uploading is one thing, which you thought, okay, this is like it's gas cost or whatever, and this is like a pay to play thing. I don't know, it's really interesting. But the governance one seems really interesting to me because basically what you say is it allows a way of updating the chain quickly. I mean, you have a pretty quick way now with Regen, with the upgrade module, but allows it relatively quickly and with not so trusted code base. So third parties can offer code where you wouldn't necessarily want to merge their Go code into your main code base all the time, but the third parties can propose code, and then governance can say, okay, we want to add this feature, just no, yes, no. And everyone can propose changes to the code base really quite nicely, or extensions to the code base. So that allows, I think the governance gated one is really nice for a actual like domain specific blockchain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Cool. Maybe if anyone can go around and it hasn't talked, if they're working, anyone that's working on this and has used CosmWasm, I'd be curious maybe if you say briefly your name and what you're using it for, and any particular good or bad experiences you've had using it, because that's wonderful feedback. Or if there's other questions.
Hey, this is Quan from Fobo and Desmos Network. And then we haven't started using CosmWasm yet, but we are planning to use that so that we can extend the network for different social media apps to work on the network. I'm wondering how can the smart contract be upgradable, and then if there is any concern on upgrading, after upgrading the smart contract, how the state changes would be concerned.
That's another very good question. Thank you. It's there's an issue, so there's actually an issue on it somewhere, but it's probably hidden in CosmWasm. Anyway, the right now Ethereum allows some sort of proxy contract to switch, and we thought to make a. I talked to Aaron a while ago, and so the idea was to allow some sort of switch on a contract. That means a contract can be immutable, means it can't be upgraded, so you know that contract's never going to change, or it can be mutable, like upgradable. And if this upgrade was an owner, which could be a multi-sig or a normal address, the idea was that that owner would be able to switch out the code, right? So the same contract would change their code ID 1 to code ID 52, where they upload new code base. And then it would keep running on it. So at that point, however, the code might have a different schema. So we'd want to have a migrate function. So part of this trick is that you'd have the new code to have some sort of migrate function, which then normally the first code it's created has a init function, which instantiates initial data, right? And then if I call, the new function would have maybe init also, but have a migrate function we'd call the new code. So it'd migrate from old version, new version, and then run. So what this does is it should allow upgrading contracts able to migrate their own code at their own pace, independently of each other. The concern, of course, is that if the contract's then only as secure as the code or the owner address, the weakest link of the two. So, but a lot of Ethereum people use this for UX. So the idea there was basically start with upgradable contracts, often if you want to. And then you can upgrade a few times. And when you're stable with it, you can then give it up. You can freeze it, basically. It's just never upgrade it again. At that point, people know that won't upgrade this contract. And then you're more likely to trust it with lots of money, I would say. And so for early networks, when there's not a huge amount of money, I wouldn't worry about upgradable contracts. But if there's $100 million US in a contract and there's an owner address that can just change the code, why that person can steal the money in some hand, right? You're trusting that one person to steal your money. So yeah, that's kind of the idea. But I definitely think it's very, very important for early iterations and beginning testnet, production net, new contracts out there. So if you have specific use cases, I'll send you an issue on after this. You can add your comments to it. I'm happy for use cases because very clear use cases help make the code better.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, maybe just one quick comment regarding upgrading contracts. Since there's so much demand for this feature, and we've seen a lot of different approaches in Ethereum building this feature using contracts, we want to implement it natively. And this ensures that upgradability works the exact same way in every contract. You don't have a different proxy contract for everything you interact with. And that makes a lot of the upgrading much more transparent. So you can track the changes when a contract changed from one code to another in a code explorer, where you could see the code diff between the source code of the first contract and the source code of the second contract. And you can have all this great tooling that supports you during this upgrade process and supports the user in trusting this upgrade process by standardizing this.
So actually, we have a specific use case on some social media apps, which we are considering using CosmWasm to control the fracking actions by the users. Because different social media apps, they may have different rules on reporting posts. So like a social media app, they can have their own smart contract and then deploy it on Desmos, and then designing the rules on how people, maybe one app that would say if a post has been fragged by 100 users, then it will not be displayed. But maybe after some certain times, then the rules changed, and then we have to upgrade the contract, and then we have to update the state, because some of the posts maybe for example, if the rules change to if a post has been reported by 50 times, then it has to be invisible. Then we have to update state, and then that's my specific use case for social media.
That's a very good point. Thank you. I'd love to see you. I'll send the link to the GitHub issue on the channel right after this call. Because I was considering so far the contract has its own state, and we upgrade the contract, it updates its own state, right? It can then migrate its own state. And it would, but in this case, I assume that this contract is more like a query contract that just says that, send it a post that says it's allowed or not allowed. In that case, I mean, if you did it that way, you basically have the calling contract would just use this as an oracle to say should I display or not display? And then actually state is another contract. So if you're, depending how you're building it, we might have to add some more hooks.
I see.
So, but if you had all the contracts stored inside the contract that knows what the display rules are, if that has all the posts inside of its state, or the posts inside of its own state, and then it displays them, which is probably maybe one simple way of doing it, it will be able to migrate them and just change those rules on the fly. That's no problem. If those posts are stored in a second contract, which is not possible now, 0.8 will have it. If those posts are stored on another contract, and it just calls into this contract that says basically, hey, you're more or less stateless contract saying, just let me know if these posts are valuable, then that's a different story. So I think, you should write the use case down, because it comes up with how you start building composition and doing migrations with different contract composition.
All right, thank you.
So we're still, we need some more good use cases, production use cases, to get out best practices. So I have some ideas to start building stuff, but the hard problems really come from building certain business logic. And then you say, okay, this is not a theoretical problem, this is a real practical problem. So how would you model that best?
Hello, this is Alex. So I was wondering, I mean, this project is in a very early stage, but have you sort of plans about protecting from malicious or let's say not well-written contracts, so like non-deterministic or just super slow contracts?
That's a good question. Thank you. That was actually the first, we did a prototype and a hack at them, and that was the first major flaw. We said we have no protection. So we do have protection. First of all, if you upload a contract, it rejects any bytecode it considers non-deterministic. So any floating point operation in a contract is rejected, whether or not it's called, which means that we cannot use a standard JSON library because it has float support. Therefore, we can't even use, we can't even import that code, whether or not we use those paths. That code is rejected from uploading. And any sort of stuff that deals threading. So most code doesn't matter, but yeah, we cannot use anything with floating point in there. And we do reject that code at the upload phase. We have a checker. The second point is that we do have a gas meter. So we've tested this. There's an interesting test I think I put into the WASM-D. So added in the demo contract, there's a bunch of calls. One is panic inside the contract. Another one is infinite loop of CPU. Another infinite read-write cycle on storage. So basically, it tests all those cases. So if the contract panics, it returns an error. It doesn't crash the machine. If the contract runs infinite loop, it cuts the loop off at a certain point. And if it calls infinite loop to storage, the storage gas will cut it off earlier. So all of those cases are actually covered in test cases. So it should. There are no known attacks like that. There is a thing called a JIT bomb, which means that you have a compiler. We have a compiler that turns our WASM code to native code. That compilation step theoretically could be O(n) squared or O(n) cubed, something depending on certain contracts. We're using the simplest one possible, which is single pass, which I think has no such attacks, which is why other people use it also for blockchains. But the more complex ones is an LLVM backend, which does a really amazing job turning it to basically almost native speed, running the WASM code almost native speed. Except there's definitely ways of causing that to go in infinite loops while compiling your code, which is not gas metered. So we've avoided that. That's definitely one thing. So I'm pretty sure there are no major open holes, but if someone really wants to go through and do an audit, security audit, they might find something. We're currently using more or less the same threat model as Near Protocol, except they have more checks on their parsing code than we do, like their JSON or their binary format parsing code.
Yeah, thanks for the update.
Well, I'll add one other question. When can you use it in production? So I would advise everyone to run it in testnets now and not productionize it. 06 to 07 broke the internal format in the contract, so you couldn't even do an upgrade of a chain from a 06 to 07 because you need different code. Like it just break. You don't have generic code migrations. The code is supposed to be immutable by default, so you should be able to have an upgrade of a chain, which does not change that. We are currently considering alpha software. When it gets to beta, we'll try to keep that fact that you can upgrade from version 09, 010, a blockchain with the same contracts in line without breaking anything. And that's gonna, that's a goal when you hit beta. And then stable when you hit 1.0, we'll just call it something that you can put in production and should be backwards compatible fully. So it's currently alpha, and 0.8 probably makes some breaking changes as well. It might not. You might be able to run 0.7 contracts 0.8. I don't know. But we're not worrying too much about that. We're not going to make too many breaking changes. We're not worrying about porting contracts for multiple versions yet. So that's definitely something we hit beta. You should be able, you can start testing it out, and if it's stable, it'll be there. I don't expect that to be fully stable, like mainnet ready, for a number of months. Depends if there's strong need. I would put 6 months out there after IBC is merged in, and then really and assembly script and Go. Or Go. Once you have a second language and IBC support inside of it, then we can really try to make sure we get stability. But those are big cases we need to make sure inside of that might cause breaking changes. After that, I don't know of any major features we need to integrate that would cause any breaking changes. Okay, well, I'm going to stop the recording now. And if